Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. It's been a year. We are back at The Bear, Season 3, FX on Hulu, one of the biggest shows currently on the streaming airwaves, whatever you want to call it, multiple-time Emmy winner, and this is the highly anticipated third season of the show. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hello, everybody.
And also Meaghan Krantz.
Hi, everyone.
So last time we all came together, ladies, we talked Bratz. Totally different vibe.
Oh my God, yeah.
For this episode. And this is a show that obviously a lot of people watch it. I actually just saw the stat right before we started recording that not only is it the biggest FX on Hulu premiere ever with 5.4 million minutes viewed already, but it's the highest or the most viewed scripted series ever in the history of Hulu already through just a few days of the release. So this is one where there's a lot on the table. There's a lot to talk about. Now, me and Meaghan are here for the first time to talk about The Bear in its entirety. Liz was on one of our first episodes ever here on Culture Wave talking about it with, I believe it was Zach and Michael. Mm-hmm. So I haven't even fully been able to give my love for this series, but I want to start with you, Liz, because we always start with our broad thoughts.
Yes.
What do you think of season 3 of The Bear? Spoilers ahead, by the way. So if you guys haven't watched the series yet, be prepped because we're going to be talking spoilers. But if you didn't binge The Bear, then what are you doing with your life? Liz, go right ahead.
Okay, broad thoughts. I won't go into too much detail, but I was disappointed in this season. Too many montages, too much weight on flashbacks and things that have happened in past seasons and in the history of the characters. For me, there was a lot of meandering and not a lot of storytelling going on. I think there was not a lot of growth in the characters. And with all of that negative stuff being said, I still think that it's one of the greatest shows on television right now. It's not a season that you should skip. It's still a season that you should watch. There are 2 episodes that I think are actual, like, huge standout episodes that made me feel like I was actually watching The Bear, and it was what I was hoping for. But I just feel like if only there's 2 good episodes in my mind out of 10, that's a disappointment.
Okay.
So those are my first thoughts.
Meaghan, what are your first thoughts on The Bear season 3?
I have to agree with Liz on this one. Prior to recording, we were talking about who I was going to agree with because I know we all have opposing thoughts. So I was curious as to who it was going to be. But yeah, Liz, I agree with the fact that, very broadly speaking, because I know this isn't true, and that we do have literally 2 standout episodes. I wonder if we're thinking of the same ones. I know. I feel like it's almost as if nothing happened. Nothing was resolved. Nothing was resolved from like the prior seasons. We were introduced to some new conflict, but yet that was still unresolved by the end of it. So it kind of just felt like we were just in this sort of limbo for this season. Definitely think that it needs to be seen. I definitely think it is, like, it's important. And am I going to watch season 4? Yeah. But it was just kind of like when it was over, I thought, oh, like that hurt, but like not in a good way, like I'm waiting for so much more. So I think I'm just really unsatisfied at the moment, but I still love the show regardless. So we'll have to get into that. Yeah.
Okay. So now it's time for my thoughts.
DJ, give it to
I
us.
will not disagree that I think, alluding to what both of you were saying, I don't know Meaghan's thoughts necessarily on seasons 1 and 2, but I know that you love the show very much, which is why you're on the episode.
Totally.
Season 3 was definitely my least favorite of the 3 seasons. I'm not taking that away from it. I do feel differently in terms of there only being 2 episodes that I liked. And Liz and I, we talked a little bit off camera about certain choices that were made by Christopher Storer in general, giving certain characters too much time. Parts of me like the fact that The Bear is one of those only shows on television, in my mind, that, and I don't want to use the word authentic because you can use that in a bunch of different contexts. For me, The Bear is one of the only scripted shows currently on television that feels real. Like that and Abbott Elementary are like 2 that stand out to me. It's like, this is really watching people live out exactly who they are and interacting with people in the way that they do. And I think the characters that we'll get to embody that completely with who their characters are. However, I do think that in terms of the weight that this show has now built, which is not its fault, but there's such a following. And season 2, which I didn't get to talk about in the full episode over a year ago, but I think season 2 of The Bear is one of the greatest seasons of television ever made, one of the greatest things ever made in cinematic history, I truly believe. And it brought television to a whole new height recently. And I do think that, unfortunately, this season can't live up to that. And I do agree that there is some meandering that happens, but I do think it's going to be interesting as we dive into each episode. And we're not going to spend so much time on every single episode because that would be impossible and it would take so much time. But there are certain episodes that I feel like some people really like, and there are some episodes that people don't like. But the 2 episodes in particular that I think you 2 are alluding to are the same 2 that I feel are the strongest of the season.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Let's start with the premiere though, because the premiere is something that's being talked about a lot for what it is. And it is basically a long montage showing how Carmy ended up where he is at this exact moment in time of The Bear. And the last time we had saw Carmy, he was locked in the freezer in the restaurant, and he was saying some things that he shouldn't have said, and other people were saying things they shouldn't have said. And obviously we know what happened with him and Claire at the end of the season, and then the animosity that him and Richie have now towards one another. But so much of that first episode is just showing you how Carmy got to where he is today, now running The Bear. And it's done in what some are describing as an artistic way. Jeremy Allen White, actually, I have a quote, talked about that premiere episode and said, it felt like walking around in somebody's mind. It felt very fresh and new. It felt very exciting in its structure and style, and it felt different while also being very much at the heart of the same tone of the show. My approach with Carmy has always been so protective. He's doing this. This makes sense. This is the drive. And it does give you the most context that you can get out of Carmy's character probably throughout this whole entire season. But so much of that is what came before, just leading us up to this moment and not showing growth necessarily with his character. So Liz, I am curious with how you thought about that intro episode after so much noise being in that finale of season 2 and where it leads us into with the premiere of season 3.
Yeah, so definitely not the opening episode that I think a lot of people expected. I didn't really expect it. I thought it was going to be more of like a rocket and taking the reins from exactly where we left off and just letting it like unfold again. But with that being said, I didn't dislike the first episode. Actually, I appreciated what they were trying to do, because I do think the reason that The Bear is so popular and so just loved is because they give space where needed to appreciate the art of food and the art of filmmaking. And so for me, that first episode really was just them showing their love and just passion for what are the roots of The Bear. And I understood of like, okay, this will be the first episode and then we'll jump right back into like the chaos. But then I feel like the tone of that first season ended up just the tone of that first episode started seeping in throughout the whole season, which I don't think it was needed. I think that it should have been isolated to that first episode.
I agree with that. Megan?
Agree 110% with that. It was funny because I watched the first 2 episodes with my family, and as we were watching it, like we were watching the premiere, and we were thinking, like, oh, imagine the whole episode is like this. Oh my god! And then it was, and we were like, oh wow, that was, and I was thinking the same thing, right? It's like, okay, you know, we're getting this out of the way. It's kind of like this very unconventional recap, kind of like this non-linear way of, you know, going back and forth between all these old memories and what's going on with Carmy and everything. So, you know, I think eventually I started to kind of sit into it and follow what was going on, because I was a little confused at first, to be totally honest with you. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that the fact that the music was like the same the entire 40 minutes or however long the episode was, or half hour, it started to get a little, I don't know. I started to feel a little run down after a while. Like, okay, this is, I get it at this point. And we weren't really being shown much of what we didn't already know as well. So I think that that's kind of where it just felt like a really long recap episode. So it got a little redundant, I think, at a certain point, which was a little frustrating. But I had the same idea. Like, okay, going in further into the season, things are going to get crazy, things are going to be moving, but things didn't really move. So I think that, you know, that same like that same feeling I had watching the premiere, it didn't totally change. It kind of felt pretty stagnant. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the first episode.
Yeah, I felt that, like, kind of how you were saying, Liz, too. It kind of gets into this territory of being repetitive for the sake of trying to make the audience realize how much is in Carmy's head. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's a technique that works necessarily as well by showing us all these flashbacks throughout the season. I think, like you, if it was a standalone episode, and though, like Meaghan, you had said, it is jarring when you realize that is the whole episode, right? Especially coming off of where we ended up at the last season, and all the descriptions of the episodes I think are so interesting for this season, because it's really just laying it out exactly what it is for you. Mm-hmm. It literally says the next day and the days that led to it. So it's literally showcasing exactly what led Carmy to having that insane freak out in that freezer, and why there's so much pressure on that he puts on himself, and so many things that he deals with that led to that moment. And I agree with what you were saying, Meaghan. Like, it's not that we don't already know that. It's just that we're finally seeing it all laid out in flashback, which would be okay if it wasn't constantly shown throughout the season.
Yeah.
Especially in regard to his former mentor, who is played by Joel McHale, who we've seen previously, which leads to eventually what we see in the end. And I know we're going to talk about all the episodes, but I think we could jump around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think we can.
Starting there at the beginning and how we end on the last episode, Liz, I know, has very strong thoughts on the finale, which maybe, Meaghan, you share the same sentiment, but I want you to talk about.
Should we have Meaghan go first?
We can have Meaghan
Let's have Meaghan go first.
So, Meaghan, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the finale? One encapsulated as an individual episode, and then as a conclusion wholly.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what is so frustrating is we briefly talked about the finale of season 2, which was incredible. And I actually rewatched it earlier today because I felt like I needed that fire again. Like, I needed to feel that again, because I was like, that made me feel something. That is where I cried. That is where I was anxious. And I thought it was great. And if you were to put that finale of season 2 next to the finale of season 3, it was just much less exciting overall. However, I will say that I did really enjoy the fact that everyone got together for like that party after
the funeral,
funeral dinner. Yeah, like that was a great scene in my opinion, and I really did enjoy the fact that they used one of my favorite songs, "Laid" by James. I was like so excited when they used that song, and the fact that we got to see Sydney in a very vulnerable moment when she kind of has that like panic attack, which we'd never really seen before. It kind of reminded me of the fact that Carmy's like always been struggling with, you know, anxiety and all the pressure, making decisions and things like that. And that's where I think we saw Sydney in a very, different place. So I thought that was something that did move us forward with the entire story. But at the end, when Carmy's walking and we get the review finally comes out, and then we get these flashes, which we had seen so much throughout the season. I feel like it's just flashes and flashes of all these famous chefs and all of these reviews and all of these like all these food critics and things like that. We are just thrown all of these terms that are kind of like this mishmash of positive and negative, and you know, it's just coming through, and Carmy just is like, oh, motherfucker, and then it's over, and then it's like, oh, okay, like, was it good? Was it bad? I'm actually left with literally nothing pretty much right now. So I think it was well crafted overall, but I just feel like it was much less exciting. Things didn't really change, and now we're kind of still left wondering, all right, like, you know, like literally nothing was resolved. So I kind of was just like, oh, brother, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very frustrated at the moment with that, but
Liz.
Yeah.
I hated this last episode. Like, I hated it so much. I just want to say, why do we have a to be continued? We know it's to be continued because there's another season that's coming and life is going on for these characters. Like, who said, oh, We got to let them know it's going to continue. Like, who the fuck decided that, honestly? And so, like, that for me just was so annoying, because if this season was chaotic as a new restaurant should have been, then I understand how they want to flip us over and have it be a little bit more of a softer toned finale episode and let it be of, okay, why do all these people choose this crazy life? If the whole other season if the rest of the season was crazy, but the rest of the season was like a snooze fest. So then to have the finale be boring and just like a group of professional chefs talking, which I felt like I was watching kind of like a TED talk going on, I was like, where is the story? Where is the story at this? And we literally watched Carmy for 10 minutes stare at this man who, like, we've already seen clearly did tons of trauma for him, just for us to have a conversation between the two of them that isn't resolved. Pretty much he's just like, I don't think about you. Sorry. And so, like, I don't know. There was just no resolution, and kind of like what DJ and I talked about prior was this whole season was just conflict. But in order to have conflict, you have to have resolution. And I just think that it's kind of shitty to not give your audience any sort of resolution and then to leave them on a to be continued.
Yeah.
End of my rant on that.
So I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I had said to you off camera before we started that I wish they didn't end on the review the same way that we kind of didn't see the full resolution of what was to come after the freezer until we got season 3. I felt the exact same way about how this season ended. I would have liked it for it to maybe even end on Sid's panic attack. There are moments in this episode, though, that I really, really like. So I disagree on hate. Like, I don't hate the episode at all, which I think is okay. I think that so much of this season is driven through the perspective of Carmy, where though he is the main character and the titular character, basically, as the bear, I think that so much of this season is focused on what his struggle is, even though you get bits of that throughout the first 2 seasons. And they really want to give you a exposure to every single thing that he's thinking. And we disagree, I think, on this. I think that there is growth by the end of the season for Carmy. And I actually think so much of what he has dealt with, and he's still going to deal with his shit when we get to the eventual season 4. But I think that a lot of what his character is now being learnt by Sydney. And that's why we're seeing the reaction that she's having, because so much of what Carmy had dealt with these panic attacks, and he is becoming what Joel McHale was to him towards Sydney, not giving her she's getting no credit for anything she's doing. She refuses to sign the agreement, and she has this very intense panic attack where she's in this major struggle between trying to decide whether she's going to fulfill her dream with Shapiro's character and be the CDC of his new restaurant, but still having she also has a lot of flashback in the same way in the season that Carmy does, where they flash to all these moments in her past, where she then is now realizing that, like, at the same time, the bear is like her family. Like, she doesn't have a family, and that is what her family is. Meanwhile, Carmy is every single focus that he has is in trying to be the greatest and get away from what is at his core, which is his family. And I think that his interaction with Joel McHale's character, I actually really liked. Maybe you felt differently, but I thought it was so valuable for him to say to him, one, I never think of you at all, to sort of get to the point, in fact, that at the end of the day, you need to stop thinking about me. But then to double down on that and say, no, I made you an excellent chef. Everything you wanted to be, you got there. So what are you complaining about? What are you stressing about? What are you worrying about? So that final episode, and I do understand, especially with the meandering nature of the season, the chefs talking for 10 minutes can add to that, and it feels like that. But to me, I took it as, look at all these experiences that all these chefs have because of people, and look at how little experiences Carmy has because he refuses to let people in. That's how I took it. Now, maybe you feel differently. You can talk about that if you want, but
I would have appreciated this season more because I really didn't dislike it until I realized I was like 5 episodes in and nothing happened. And I was like, wait a minute, I have not loved an episode yet. And then we got finally to Tina's episode where I finally was like, okay, I'm finally watching The Bear, and like I feel like I'm watching and a relationship happen. At this point, I just feel like there was no relationship going on and no storytelling. It was just like quick cut shots about food and anger and yelling and anger, which like there can be relationship and anger, but I don't think that there was, because they just were not I don't know. I just didn't really connect with any of it. But I was still hoping. I was like, okay. I was like, they're going to give us a great season finale. I was like, they're going to give us what we've been waiting for. We're going to find out what Sydney is going to do. Or maybe just have her do a decision and then she can change it last minute. But I feel like for the like climax of the show to just be a conversation that between Carmy and his old chef is like not worth a whole season. Like that for me should have been episode 9, which then we watch the aftermath of Carmy kind of like spiraling because he was expecting to have this huge epiphany and really this guy just said like, I don't think about you. And then I would have rather seen, okay, does Carmy spiral from this conversation? And then also what happens with Sydney when the review comes out. Like for me, they should have given us that in the final episode. I think to make everybody wait until the next season, just what was the point of this season? Was it literally all just like suspense and to keep us waiting and waiting and waiting? There was not one like pivotal change besides the sister giving birth.
Yeah.
That was literally the only event that actually took place.
Totally right.
I think that there was so much like this whole if I could describe this whole season in one word, it would be fracture, because so much of what the relationships are is that every single person is not interacting with each other the way they used to because of what happened at the end of season 2. And so much of the repercussions are based on the way that Carmen is acting. And you see it because despite the fact that he's a character that deals with so much trauma, he still has, and you see it in moments in this season. It's very far and few between. It's mostly with Marcus, which we can get to the individual characters because I think all of us would agree that Marcus is so underutilized in this season, which sucks because Lionel Boyce is so good. But he's an asshole in this season, like full-blown asshole. Carmy is, and there's not a lot that you should feel bad about, like in terms of like even the fact that he does all these non-negotiables that he doesn't run by anybody else, including Sid, and then he
he doesn't stick to like himself. He doesn't stick to them.
Oh, to the non-negotiables?
Yeah, he doesn't stick to them.
Yes, well, yeah, because he's in this constant state of now routine of just like doing and doing and doing and doing, and I think that it's hard for a season of any television show to succeed when there is so much fracture and there's so much that you love these characters, but all the relationships that are established are not sort of touched upon, except for the 2 episodes in particular that I think you want to talk about anyway. But let's get Megan's thoughts on sort of just the relationship part and Carmy in general this season, because I do think it's an interesting talking point, because I think so much of the season is on his shoulders and not in a good way. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I found it so funny, Liz, when you said that you felt like you were watching like TED Talks. Because I like, this is so hard, guys, because I agree with a lot of what both of you were saying. But yeah, like I feel like a lot of that episode, it felt really like boring, especially when we were like getting all those conversations, all like the toasts and the speeches and everything. I do see the value in it. I think that the most exciting part would be the conversation that he has with his old, with the old chef and everything from New York. That Carmy is just truly stuck, but he's stuck because of everything going on up here. Like he's finally gotten to a place where he wanted to be. We worked 2 seasons to get to this point. He has his own restaurant. Like he's here, but yet again, it is still like this need for perfection that is just keeping him stuck in the same place essentially. And this conversation with him and the chef was like, I cringe, but in like a good way for once, throughout this season, because you can just tell like the way like Carmy was giving him so much power just by telling him like, you made me have panic attacks. Like, you made me feel terrible. Like, I'm a mess because of you and you. Like, I still think about you all the time. But yet, if we go back into season 2, you know, when he's like in the support group, and they're like one of my favorite lines from the entire show when he was on the whole monologue that he was going on and just saying, like, he was talking about Mikey and the chef and was saying, like, all I wanted to do was just like say, like, fuck you, watch this, you know, and just like, and he was just gonna prove it to them what he could do. And that's what he just should have done. That he should have just stuck to where he was at and making the restaurant and nurturing all these relationships with all of his colleagues and everything. But yet, you know, he's just staying in the same place. I think it just remaining very stagnant just by telling like the chef, like, you still have so much power over me, and I feel like I'm stuck because of you. Like, I can't move on because of you. Like, you still make me feel this way. But he hasn't even been in his life for so long, and now Carmy's moved on, but he can't see that he's moved on because he's just still stuck in his own head. So I that's where I think that the value came from that conversation, but I still found it to be somewhat pointless in the end when you just think about, like, okay, well, that didn't resolve anything, you know? We're just like, that, okay, we knew how Carmy felt about him. You know, it doesn't give us anything new to work off of or to think about. It was just kind of like, okay, now they had this interaction that, you know, they're never going to speak again. Like, it's not like they came to an agreement. It's not like they, you know, made peace with each other. Like, none of them are probably going to feel any different after this conversation, you know?
See, that's why I feel different about it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's
why you think that Carmy's now going to change from being told that the chef doesn't think about him.
I don't think he's going to have like a complete transformation of character, which I guess is maybe the point of what you want out of that. But I think it is going to be a major contributing factor to him getting back to the roots of him actually being able to figure shit out. Because I think that, again, so much of the season is him being in his own head and just having that conversation and him hearing from somebody that he feared but also weirdly respected, because that was another part of it and another layer that is just not really touched upon, because all you see is this negativity from this guy. But if he didn't respect him, he wouldn't have still been there every day and doing what he says it even in the line that he says to Will Poulter's character, where he goes, he's the worst piece of shit I've ever met, but he's one of the best chefs I've ever met. So he still has respect for this guy. And the fact that though he is obviously an awful human being, which you can see even in his interaction, there is a part of that. And even the fact that we get tears from Carmy, I think is real. Like, I just love that interaction between those two characters. And I do think it's leading to something different, which was why I didn't like that they ended on the review, because I felt like between that interaction and then his conversation with Andrea, played by Olivia Colman's character, like, you're starting to see him break open a little bit. And that's where I think there's the flip between him and Sydney. I think that everything that Carmy embodied in this season then gets pushed onto Sydney at the end. And that's what leads to the panic attack. Because even in a moment of bliss and joy, she's like, Andrea Terry is literally in my refrigerator right now. She goes from that moment to seeing one glimpse of a newspaper article about the beef when she had first gotten there and Carmy was there. And she completely loses her shit. She doesn't know how to deal with it. And it's so much of what she's dealt with throughout the 3 seasons and trying to come to grips with it. And it's all in her head now. So I have a different perspective on that.
I think, though, the reason that she has the panic attack is because she truly doesn't know, like, what decision to make. I think that she's scared of staying with them, but then also scared of, like, moving on from them, too.
I think that's part of it. But I also think she's stuck in that same monotonous routine of being like, so much of the season to me is it feels like a therapy session, which is why it can be hard and it's not the most entertaining thing. But I think that so much of it is like an identifier of, like, she's addicted to what the bear represents in her life. And that's why it's so hard for her to do it. And that was my outlook on it.
I don't know. I just wish, okay, so, like, I get the whole thing of, I could buy if Carmy is starting to have a change right at the last possible second. But then I think that, on the other hand, they should have continued Sydney's story and show then, okay, he's changing, she's changing, and she's not going to stay with the bear. Like, I think that from the first episode, they say, like, hey, or the second episode is when they're all together finally, they drop the pin of, you have a partnership opportunity. and to then just let that storyline drag throughout the whole season and never to wrap that up, like, how lazy writing, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think they were scared to actually make a decision in this season, the writers. I think that they were like, oh, we don't want to do that too soon. Like, we don't want to make Sydney have to make a decision because that'll totally push the story momentum forward in a different way if she chooses not to sign it. But then at the same time, if she does choose to sign it, then all that suspense is gone. And I think they were just scared to make a choice.
I think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
But I also feel that so much of it is based in the fact that she doesn't know what to do. Like, I really think that they're showcasing to the audience full blown, like, she does not know what to do, because the bear represents one thing in her life, and then this opportunity with Shapiro represents a whole nother thing that she doesn't even feel compelled that she can do that yet. Like, and I don't know if she feels the confidence to be able to do that. I mean, I'm curious what happens, but we talked about this too. And Meaghan, I'm curious on what you think about this. So much of this season feels like setup for a season 4. So I don't know if you felt that throughout where we eventually end up. And like Liz had talked about the to be continued, like, we know that they're going to go because it was already announced that they renewed seasons 3 and 4 after they won all the Emmys. So
Right.
How did you feel did you feel that throughout the storytelling and especially through the end?
Absolutely. I felt like that's what I mean. Like, this season felt almost entirely like setup. And I find it really interesting. Like, we're having this conversation about how they could have totally taken this direction with Sydney. It's like, if they had focused on the relationships between the characters in this season, like we were saying that it was really lacking in the season, if we had some sympathy for Carmy if Sydney were to leave, I feel like that would have been something really effective. Like, had just more moments between them where you can tell that it's weighing on her. Like, we kind of just know what's going on and we see the anxiety from her perspective, but like, Carmy doesn't know, but they also don't really interact very much. In fact, I don't really feel like we see much of Carmy really at all this season. Like, I feel like we're not really with him in this season. We're kind of just in his head, and it just kind of, I don't know, we have a different relationship with him this season. But I think it turns out, I did read somewhere that they filmed season 3 and 4 back to back. Like, they already so if this is set up, then that would make that would really make sense to me if they just because I literally thought that there's no way that it took them that long to film a season where most of it is just all of these flashbacks from seasons ago. Like, how, like, what, like, you used archive footage practically. Like, how did it take this long for season 3 to come out? So I think that the fact that they were filming season 3 and 4 simultaneously, if that's true, then if they were focusing so much on what's going to happen season 4, and they kind of just in post put season 3 together and are like, okay, like, this is going to be a little slow burn, that seems totally plausible to me, I think.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. Did you just look it up? Because I heard you typing. Oh, I don't know if you want to look it up, but so I also had heard, Meaghan, what you were saying, where they were filming either 3 and 4 simultaneously or 3 and 4 back to back. But then I had seen something online recently that said that wasn't necessarily true. That they filmed some parts of season 4 during it, but not the full season. Which is interesting to me, because I don't know if that means they're waiting for a reception, or they're I don't know necessarily what that means, or if they had specific cameos that they were waiting on that might play integral parts, because cameos are such a big part of the bear now at this point too.
Yeah.
But I do agree in terms of the setup. I think it feels more like setup than the previous 2 seasons. It's like we were living with these characters, and I agree. It's a really good way of putting it, that we're not really with Carmy as a person, because so much of it is just him embodying this insane brain chemistry that's going on, where it's just chaos, and you don't feel for his character as much because of that. Did you find it?
I saw that they the first one that I saw says that they did film it back to back.
Okay, so interesting. I don't know.
So what I kind of want to jump to, because I feel like I've been ragging on this show this whole time.
I was just gonna bring it up.
Is I want to talk about the 2 episodes that I thought were par with the other 2 seasons. I feel like the 2 episodes that I'm talking about were the Tina episode, which I think is episode 6, and the birthing
Sugar episode.
Yeah.
They are both
Mhm.
the two
Those-
top rated episodes on IMDb, by the way.
Those were the
so,
exact two I was
Yep.
thinking. Yep.
Yeah. So, go
So
ahead.
DJ, why don't you go first? Give
Okay.
me your thoughts on it.
Okay.
I never get to ask you to go first.
So sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I was texting you
Mhm.
during Ice Chips, which is Sugar's episode,
Mhm.
which to me is like a top 5 episode of The Bear ever. I thought that so much of everything that The Bear does right was in that episode, whether it came to the editing style and the franticness of her being in this situation of going to get C stands, or C folds, which everybody was asking for in the previous episode. And she's stuck in traffic. The baby is coming. She is with nobody, which she chooses to do.
Mhm.
She tells the facts not to come. And she's alone in this moment. And they're getting ready for service. So everybody has their phones locked up in their lockers. And there's nobody for her to reach out to for help except for Donna, her mother, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who
The
we've seen
queen.
previously. And what we get in this episode is such beauty in the sense that you are actually seeing in real time repair between these two characters, which I said before we started recording, I think that's what we're leading up to with season 4 with Carmy, and the fact that Donna needs to be the person that, like, Claire, I think is used as a device in this season. And I don't know how much we're going to see of her going forward, which I don't like that either. I know you don't. But I think so much of it is the fact that he needs to come to grips with dealing with his mother. And I think we're going to see that, like we saw it first with Sugar, and we're going to see it with Carmy in the next season. And I just think it's a beautiful episode. There's so many incredible moments. Jamie Lee Curtis can literally win an Emmy Award just for one episode, which I think she will. She'll get the guest Emmy, I think. So that's the first one I want to talk about, and then if you want, we could definitely jump to Tina's episode, because I do agree it's probably the my second or third favorite episode of the season. But Ice Chips is my favorite.
Let's keep talking about Ice Chips. Meaghan, you want to go about that episode?
Sure. I'm really glad that we're talking about this, because I agree that this was probably the episode that I enjoyed the most too. And it's just the fact that, like, it's the fact that we have Donna and Natalie in this really just sort of like this repair, like this intimate moment where Natalie's going through something. It's a pretty big deal. We're finally seeing the birth of this child, and Donna's kind of being like a real mother in a sense. Like we're starting to see that end of her, and I personally was feeling emotional a few times throughout.
I literally cried. I texted Liz. I said, I think I'm getting to this moment as I get older. I'm just crying over everything.
But yeah, exactly. And especially just because the fact that I think it's different also, it's the fact that you were a man and that made you emotional, that just goes to show how that one felt like The Bear. That one was a real interaction where it was okay, this feels real and raw, and I thought the performances were incredible. The fact that we were just watching this labor happen, Natalie's having contractions and we're actually watching all of this happen, so I just think that it was really sweet, and we got so much time to just give her moment. If we really think about the fact that this woman is carrying this baby for 9 months, she wants it to come out already. This grueling process of actually going through the birth, and having this 40-minute episode of just that entire process, or not the entire process, but most of the process and the experience, I think was very well deserved. And just, I don't know, I'm glad that we spent that much time with her in that episode. It was different, and it felt like a true episode of The Bear. So I felt pretty good after.
No, I agree with you guys. I think the reason that episode and then the other one that we'll talk about, Tina, stands out to me is because I felt like there was actual love in those relationships and those scenes. I think that's kind of what was missing from the other episodes for me. Is the thing that makes The Bear as a show so good and interesting is that it has these intense, almost ping pong like scenes where it's so fast paced and you don't really know what the other person is going to say or react. You don't know if they're going to respond with anger, with resentment, or with love and compassion. And I think that episode really just showed that there are so many different emotions wrapped up in these complicated relationships, and it's not just black and white of I'm angry and I'm mad at you. It's like, yes, I'm angry at you, but you are still somebody that I love and care for, but I have so much resentment toward you, but I need to push that away in order for, like, there's just so much to unravel. And it was just beautiful. I loved that you just never knew if all of a sudden what do they call her, Sugar, was gonna like kick her mom out of the room. There were so many times where I was like, she's gonna yell at her to just like leave. She's gonna be like, get out, I regret calling you. But she chose to say like, no, I need somebody here, I need her here. And even with Donna, she could have I was expecting her to blow up and be like, if you think I'm a shitty mom, like, I'm out of here then. Like, good luck without me. But instead she swallowed her pride and was like, no, I need to be here, like, I'm gonna do this. One thing though that I found super interesting, and I don't know if this was like pointed or not, is that you never see Carmy like go and see his sister after she gives birth, or go see the baby,
or react, or
say anything.
There is a moment at the end of the season where they say, where Oliver Platt's character, his uncle, straight up says, he goes, you got to call your mother, you got to go see the baby, and he goes, I know. So he is aware of it.
Yeah, it's just like such like a weird, like, I don't know why. Like, why do they make him so unlikable?
I think
why are they making him so unlikable?
I think so much of it is, like I said, I mean, I don't know. I have my thoughts on it. I already said, I feel like I already talked about it so much.
Unlikable. I just feel like your sister just gave birth and she's she's your sister, but also like business partner. So like you should care.
Yeah.
In a way.
I agree.
Like, take your mom out of the situation. Go see your sister, who literally is the only reason pretty much that you are financially stable in this restaurant.
I think season 4 is going to be a lot of repair for him. Like, it's going to have to be. Because
but the question is it too late?
It's possible. It's possible. I think people might think that way until we get the moment with him and Richie. And I think that's where it's going to be like, everybody is going to feel it, because there's so much happening, and they do it, I thought, they do a great job in the cinematography when they have that shot of the split, the 2 shot of Richie in service on the floor and Carmy in the kitchen, kind of looking toward one another with the clear divide, and just show you where they've come as characters. But we can get into that, because I feel like we should wrap up the ice chips and then go to...
Yeah, I think it's actually a good transition to Tina a little bit, because I think it's a very pointed episode for me that shows the flaws more in Carmy that he's missing inside of himself that his brother had.
Yes, I 100% agree with you.
His brother, the main point of that episode is that it doesn't matter about the job. It doesn't matter how hard the work is. It's about the people at the end of the day. And for Carmy, it's the complete opposite. It is not about the people. It is about the work and how much sweat and how much time you put into it. And you can do it by yourself and you don't need anybody to do it. But for his brother, it was, I cannot do this by myself. I need certain people with me in order to accomplish this. So I loved that episode. And Tina, for me, was my favorite.
I think that's going to be the transformative thing that we see in season 4 for Carmy. I think he's going to have to come to the realization that he needs these people and that he wants these people. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I think the direction is going. And that's also why I think that those conversations with the chefs in episode 10 are more pointed than
but he wasn't even listening to them because he was so zoned out on like his chef guy.
But I think it was reflective for the audience. But that's just my thought. I want to say one more thing about ice chips, and then I promise I'll go to napkins.
Go ahead.
Really, first, Abby Elliott also should get her flowers. She's fantastic in the episode. But the thing that made me feel like a whole different level with this episode is that Sugar tells her mother exactly how she feels about her, directly to her face, basically being like, I love you, but I hate everything you come with and all the trauma I have, and I do not want her, referring to her incoming daughter, to feel that. And then we get Donna saying, I'm working on that, which is the first time you see Donna like fully just... It's an entirely different version of her character that we're seeing transform in real time, which is why I am highly anticipating eventually when we do get Donna and Carmy to come together, because I can't imagine what that conversation is going to be like, but I'm interested in it. Napkins. Tina's episode, the directorial debut of Ayo Edebiri, which is also fantastic. I agree. The heart of that episode And the fact that the episode is titled Napkins, I think, is so great too. And then you get that call back later in the season where she touches the napkin holder. John Bernthal is so good, man. I wish he's in the show. Like, I wish he was alive in story because he's so good. But so much of what they're doing with the bear, the restaurant, is because of him. And I think Carmy loses sight of that in this season. But like you said, Liz, what Michael represents, especially for Tina, in this moment of hardship where she's this older woman that works for 15 years at this one job, and then she's let go, and she's in this thrust into this whole new world where nobody can be accepting of who she is and what she wants to do. I think the conversation between the two of them is so beautiful. And like you said, is the complete opposite, like the dichotomy of what Carmy represents in, like, only has this character, but this season in particular. So I think it gives a lot more perspective on the season as a whole, in my opinion. But I do think that Napkins in general is probably either the best or the second best episode of the season. I think either choice is a good one. Meaghan, what did you think about Tina's episode?
I love that we're talking about the conversation between Mikey and Tina, because we're really being shown how like we're given this perspective on like the things that Carmy is and Mikey isn't, and vice versa, and how like Carmy is so hyper focused on the wrong things. And this really, it's a lot of it comes from all the ego and all of the like all that damage really. And Mikey speaks really highly of Carmy in that conversation. And that was a huge moment for me, because it was like, oh my God, like he doesn't have any idea that Mikey was like saying, I think he just says like, oh yeah, like he's the greatest, because he shows the picture of whatever Carmy was working on like really early. I think it was in the first episode where we saw a little bit of that. Yeah. And now we get a call back to that, and he's showing Tina, and he's like, wow, like my brother's like incredible. And it's just, that was a heartbreaker. It really was. And I think that that episode was so raw and so emotional, and that conversation I just thought was so well directed, and I really, really enjoyed that part. And then just overall, it felt like the bear yet again, because we're with Mikey and we're in the original beef restaurant, so it has and all the Richie is being like just silly, and everyone's just being funny, and it's like, I think that was a nice little breath of fresh air, mid-season, where and like getting Tina's whole backstory. I think slightly on the contrary, if you really think about it, we are spending a whole episode of just flashback technically again, so we're not moving forward really. We're getting this inside look into Tina, but and we're really focusing on her character, which I think is well deserved, yet it's almost like, okay, but this, technically speaking, we kind of know that this happens already, but there's just a few details, in there that have never been touched on before. So I think that's where, that's what makes it special, that episode. I did really enjoy it. I thought when I saw that Io had directed it, I was just like, oh my God, like that was my favorite episode so far. And she was totally like working on that one. So I thought that was awesome. But overall, I would definitely say that I did enjoy it. And just the fact that, she's like, Tina's crying while eating the sandwich, and then the guys are like, you gotta tell her to stop crying, like like
it's gonna scare. What did they say, that it's gonna scare the regulars?
Yeah,
I was dying.
It was good.
Exactly. So like that, I really enjoy the humor of it, and all just like the sweetness, and just like how authentic really that it felt, like the whole episode. So yeah, highly enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think you bringing up, Meaghan, the humor too is a good transition, because I know that the show is filled with humor. It always has been. It's labeled as a comedy, which this season surely is not. But
no, it's not.
But at the Emmys and the Golden Globes and everywhere, it's been
games
nominated
at the end of
for.
The day is just figuring out,
yes,
like, how are we going to win an award?
Political, yes. And so the humor is something that is prominent to sort of, I think, break that tension. But there are certain characters that are probably given too much screen time. And it is, I'm looking online, it is the same sentiment that you share, Liz. So, and I'm sure, Meaghan, you share it too.
I believe.
So
I think I know where this is going.
Maddie Matheson, who a lot of the show is based on, a lot of his experiences being in a kitchen, being a former cook, now acting in the show, who plays Neil Fack. We get a lot more this season of his brother Teddy Fack, and we do get one cameo that I know Liz in particular did not like. Maybe Meaghan feels the same way. But we get Sammy Fack's introduction, who's been talked about for a couple of seasons, and it's played by John Cena in one of the big cameos of the season. Liz is shaking her head. Tell us why you hate John Cena so much and why you hate the facts this season.
I've just like never rolled my eyes harder than when John Cena came on screen, because I was just like, why do we need like this stunt casting to happen right now? And I was like, okay, he's gonna be here for one line. Let me know why this man was there for like the entire episode.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is not needed, and also it's not funny what they're doing, because I just felt like it was so, it took me out of the show. It made me feel like, okay, these are actors trying to be funny, which like nothing is funny about actors trying to be funny. I really love what is his name? Matty Matheson.
Yeah.
I love his character. I think that he is all the funny we need. Him as his own soul man is a great bit. And I think he has great one-liners. When they brought in his brother, it was ruined. Like, I do not like the duo between
Teddy
the
or
two.
Sammy?
Yeah.
Both.
Okay.
I do not like
Teddy.
Teddy.
is in the show.
Yeah,
more
but
than
like
this
was
season.
only in
He's definitely more prominent in this season.
Yeah,
though.
and it was too much. Like, it was
agree.
too much. Like, like I hated the gimmickiness. I truly was just like, why are we spending so much time on these like one-liner jokes? And it's like, we're wasting precious screen time that you could be focused on telling us if Sydney's going to sign the partnership or not. And instead you're focusing on this like stupid, like, oh, I don't want to be haunted. I want to be haunted.
Yeah.
What is being haunted? I was speechless of that whole episode. I was just like, what is the point of this? What is the point? And it just kept making me feel like there was some inside joke and like the casting crew that were like, oh, this is going to be funny. This is going to be funny. Like, we got to keep this in. And it's like, no, sir, it was not funny.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Interesting. I mean, I like the facts as characters. And again, I like Matty Matheson. There were moments within it that I did think were funny, but I do think that they definitely got more screen time than was needed. In this season, for sure. I actually want, like, if you wanted to replace some comedy, I would have liked to see more of Oliver Platt's character, and he's in it more too, but he's a fantastic character actor. I love him in basically everything he's ever done. And even the conversation he has with Carmy in the penultimate episode about all the people that came from the University of Chicago, like, that was something that I felt like really added to the allure of his character. And even when he goes back to the car and he's talking to computer and he's like, you don't understand what it's like to have kids. And he goes, you have a 15-year-old. And he's like, that's not what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, his love for the Berzatos obviously shines through. And he says he wanted to be there more. And I would have liked to see more of that. And Marcus, who we did allude to a little bit, like, unfortunately gets very shafted in this season. He did have a big focus in season 2. He gets his own episode. But Lionel Boyce is somebody similar to Matty Matheson, not a trained actor. Like, originally was a member of Odd Future, like the rap group, and has done such a tremendous job in The Bear that you want to see more of his character rather than Teddy Fack or a John Cena cameo.
Like, I don't care about them.
So I do agree with in terms of the storytelling, a little bit was sort of wasted on them. And I do think even in terms of Claire's character too, she could be looked at as a waste.
Get rid of Claire's storyline. I'm over her. Like, it was just like a romance, and now it's like, move on. We didn't need a romance in this story of The Bear. It's about restaurant. Like,
Meaghan?
Meaghan disagrees with me.
Meaghan, talk about
like
everything
Claire.
we just brought up.
Oh my god, I don't even know where to begin. Okay, well, oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna start with the brothers first of all, because I totally agree with everything Liz was saying about them, and like we know, like, they're coined as the the comedic relief characters. They were totally, like, that's what they were last season. Like, we get it, and they're funny. However, it's kind of hard to have comedic relief when there's really nothing to be relieved of. So anytime
that's great. That's it.
Anytime we had, those moments of, oh, the hauntings, like, the first time, like, okay, it was kind of funny. But then they kept making that joke over and over, and it was like, oh god, like I get it, it wasn't really funny anymore because they just kept reusing the same joke. And again, like, there wasn't.
It carries over to other episodes too. The haunted joke, it does. It leads up to
terrifying.
Yeah. Exactly. So, like, it was just, and I totally agree with, like, once I saw John Cena too, I was just like, really, like,
Like we know the only reason he was on that show is because he's like, I'm a big fan. Can I have a cameo?
But I don't know what it is.
Possible, but they that's been their MO for the last 2 seasons too. Is just bringing in big name cameos.
Yeah,
but John Cena is not an actor. Like, get him out of
right.
there.
He is an actor at this point.
Is he though, or is he just like a cameo?
No,
he is a cameo.
He's just a cameo.
Well, I think that people want to bring him in for cameos, but he is doing like other work. Like he leads a show on HBO Max. Like he's. I'm just saying.
He's just John Cena.
Well, I think
he's like a joke, you know.
Yeah, well, I think in this season, like somebody commented on IMDb and they were like, I think I might have been one too many facts, and I'm like, yeah, that's like kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
Like we didn't need, and they say there's 9 of them. So get prepared because we're gonna see.
God.
They say it in the episode. They're like, I think there's 9. So I think we're gonna see more of them throughout future seasons. But
I just want the one.
Yeah, that too. Like there's the little drops of like all the family history. Like they talk about, you know, the childhood memories with their friends and their family, and you know, like they allude to all of these like and all these inside jokes that they have. And I just didn't really like care. Like it didn't feel very necessary at all. But yeah, I think just like I don't know, there's like this stigma around John Cena. Like you see John Cena and you're just like, oh, it's John Cena. And like that's kind of it, you know. So like when I saw John Cena, I was like, I don't like that's it. Like I was just like, okay, of course, you know.
Yeah. I get it for the cameo's sake.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. But as for Claire,
she's coming for me right now.
This was probably my biggest frustration with the whole season because we ended with Carmy accidentally destroying his relationship with her, you know, and like he doesn't text her this entire season. He doesn't resolve. This is another like big plot point that just wasn't resolved in this season. So the whole time, you know, I'm waiting for like, okay, he's finally like when he was walking and about to read the review on the finale, I was like, okay, he's good. He's about to call Claire because he kept checking his phone. Yeah, like he's like, okay, this is the moment finally. But we get like a scene with her and the Fax brothers, and we get one flashback, which I really did enjoy when Carmy and Claire are talking about anxiety, and I like the song in the background and everything. Like I really enjoyed that moment. It is another flashback, meaning we're not moving forward again, but at the same time, it felt like a very just real conversation that I personally enjoyed. And just seeing Claire, gave me a little bit of hope for the season that, okay, this is finally going to be a storyline that, you know, we continue with, because I really cared about their relationship. This is the only thing in Carmy's life that he can really, you know, like outside of the kitchen, like one of the biggest things, like his relationship, and he has his family, but like he has a romantic relationship that was like beginning, it was blooming and it was something special, but then he ruined it. You know, so it's and that's I think that's a really important like part of his entire like character is that he keeps self-sabotaging himself, and we didn't get to see that at all, really. Like there was just no Claire, and it was the same thing, like, oh, have you they kept asking him, like all the supporting characters, like, oh, have you called her yet, have you apologized yet, have you done this, have you asked her, like, and it's always just no, and that's all we get. It's always just the characters being like, so have you done anything? No. And then Carmy it's like, why haven't you called her? Why haven't you tried? Like, do you not care? Like like that's another reason why, like this, like all this frustration and like how unlikable Carmy is. It's just like, okay, you're not checking on your sister who just gave birth. You're not trying to repair things with your girlfriend. You're not like caring for your partner who's been there through all of this with you. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, it was really frustrating. And I think like they want us to be frustrated. Like the creators, I definitely think that they want us to be frustrated, but it gets to a point where it's like,
give us something,
you know, like we really didn't get anywhere. Yeah, really with the season. So yeah, the fact that everything with Claire is unresolved is really, it's really irking me.
Annoying.
I really care about them.
So one of the other characters that I do think that we haven't really touched a lot upon, who was like, I feel like a lot of people's favorite character in season 2 was Evan Moss-Backrack's portrayal of Richie. And I think we have differing opinions, Liz, but I do want to start with Meaghan because I feel like I haven't heard from her about it in particular. What do you think about Richie's character this season? Did you like the approach they had with him, or did you think it was underwhelming like a lot of the season?
I just think in terms of like just the fact that, yeah, we didn't spend a lot of time on, it almost just feels like anybody besides for, you know, Tina getting her own episode. It was just kind of like, I feel like everything with Richie was just sort of we didn't really see much of him, like kind of the same way we didn't really see Carmy, and he had such a great character development, like from season 1 to season 2. Like that was such a great just development for him, and he really got his moment. So it was really great to see. I kind of just feel like with him and with the rest of the story, it felt really he remained stagnant. Everyone kind of just remained pretty stagnant, and he didn't really have too much to I guess offer this season. There's still like that tension between him and Carmy, so like that's still present, but then again, that's still something unresolved. I just kind of feel like there was no real development with him, so I feel like there isn't too much to say really, besides for like everything with his family. It really breaks my heart, everything with that. But I'm proud of him for finding acceptance in most of it. Like we can really feel how hard it is, and I think if I felt sympathy for anybody, really, like I felt the most sympathy for him. I feel like I always have. But so that was interesting, just his relationship with his family, and just kind of like, maybe hopefully coming to terms with that his ex-wife is moving on, and I feel like that still kind of remains sort of up in the air. We don't really know if he's gonna RSVP or not, but we're waiting for it, and I'm under the impression that he will, just because I think that he's really matured a lot in the past few seasons, but I think the relationship with him and his daughter, every moment they had together was really sweet. I really loved seeing that. And just the fact that he's telling his ex-wife like not to come into the restaurant until it's perfect. I think in a way he's almost protecting her of just being like this chaos is like just like no, not right now, until things feel a little bit steadier. He doesn't want to bring that area of his life into this area of his life with Carmy and the bear and everything. So I just think that he's really matured, and I really like he holds a spot in my heart, definitely.
Liz, what was your thoughts on Richie?
I honestly feel very similar to Meaghan with that I just feel like his character didn't really have a lot going on this season. I know you feel probably different, but I think the change between his character from season 1 and season 2 was so drastic and so lovable and so big that to just see him kind of I don't know, just kind of like be there and like let things happen to him rather than making things happen in his life was a little bit of a downer at times, where I was like, oh, come on. Like Richie really like ended on a great note of season 2. I was ready to see him like take the reins and just be like, I've got control of my life and like I'm gonna do this. And instead I felt like he was just kind of like a fly on the wall of watching things happen. But that being said, like his character is still so great because he can make mistakes, and there's that empathy that's been built and established with the audience. So I don't think his character will ever be like hated like maybe Carmy's is right now. But yeah, I mean, again, I wish there was more
of him,
of just everybody.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think that there was some real growth with his character, which I know you guys feel differently about, but I think there was also just a major focus on how alone he is. Like so much of what was focused on in this season was that he is just alone, and he talks about how he wants to be protective of that with his daughter, and the fact that when he asks Tiff, he's like, "Did you tell her that I'm alone?" Like, which is like they do it in a comedic way, but it's so heartbreaking for him because he wants to keep that separate from her, knowing that, even though Richie himself definitely feels all of that. He's taking all of that in. At the same time, I think just his character in general from season 1 to where he's at now has grown so much. And I think that so much of that is a testament to Eben. That I think that, again, I think so much of what season 4 is going to be is so much of a focus on trying to bring everybody back together. And I think that's going to be another conversation that he's going to have with Carmy, because right now Richie has lost out on everybody in his life that he could possibly deem near and dear to him except for his daughter. Like you see the moment where he takes off his wedding ring and he has to come to the realization that he's never going to get Tiff back. And the interaction he has with her fiance, who we get the reveal is Josh Hartnett's character, of Frank. But we also deal with the fact that like this place that gave him meaning with Ever, the restaurant, in the end, he has to deal with that dying too, essentially. And there's that great moment where he talks about when Tiff had their daughter and he was on the trip with Michael, and just how he sheds a tear every single time he talks about Mikey. So I still think there was a lot of growth with his character where you just see it sort of from season 1 to season 3. But yeah, I think there was room for more. Just like you said, Liz, there was room for a lot more with a lot of different characters, whether it's Marcus or even Eber. Like, I want to see more with Eber's character because I feel like they keep showing him in these weird scenario. Like, I mean, so much. All he did this season was make cheesesteaks and throw them out a window.
Literally.
Like, that's literally what his job was. So I'm curious. I would love for him to get an aside episode. I think that's hopefully that happens in season 4, and I'm curious what happens with his journey and what comes to it with him. But I feel like we've covered a lot of the season so far, so it might be time for scores. Meaghan, just a reminder, we do scores 1 through 10, so you can give whatever score you want. And we did lose your camera for all the people that are watching, so I'm just gonna twist my camera, and you're gonna give your score and your overall thoughts on what you thought of season 3.
Oh, this is so tough. I can't believe you guys made me go first. Okay. If I were to rate this out of 10, I think
You can give 0.5s, by the way.
Okay.
You can give 0.7s.
You can give point whatever. This is the first time in a while I'm going in between. Like, I'm going between a 0.5 and a total score.
I think here it's like necessary, you know, just because I want to give this season
I can't wait to hear
a 6.8. Not a 7 because I think that's too high, but lower than a 7 just because it wasn't mid. Like, it was better than mid, but it was not in the you know, like 7 to 10 range of like, oh, like this was good, you know, because it's still a really solid show and I still really, really enjoy it and I love the characters and everything. But I think there's just that, you know, that part of me that's like, there's still so much more that needs to happen, and I just feel like nothing really happened. It's still a great show, but it just remained so, like, you know, like, it was just so stagnant where I'm just kind of waiting for more to, you know, finally get resolved, and I have hope that it will, and I even with the, like, flop maybe that some people would consider the season is, I still have a lot of hope that everything's going to be redeemed in season 4. Like, I do genuinely think that.
I feel like you're shocked by Meaghan's
I'm so
score.
shocked by Meaghan's score. Yeah, I am. But I think you're going to be in between our two scores, maybe.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I still think The Bear is one of the best television shows on TV. I had said before we started recording, season 2 I think was a 10 out of 10. I don't think that there was anything that I would have changed about season 2.
I agree.
There are some things that I think could have been more effective in season 3. However, I think the high points were better than 99.9% of things that are currently on television. And I think that even the episodes that might have been weaker, and I think the finale is a big thing because I felt differently about the finale than both of you guys did, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the exact last moment of the finale. I love the episode, and you hate the episode, so you say, Liz. So, season 1 for me was like a 9.5. Season 2 was a 10. I'm going to give season 3 an 8.7. So I still think it's really, really good TV. We were talking to Vinny before this. There are shows this season that I think are this television season that I think are better than The Bear. But I still think it's really damn good TV when it's really, really good. And I think even in the moments where it kind of falters, it's still better than a lot of stuff that is currently on. So that's my thoughts. Liz, what is your score?
My thoughts are, I don't remember what I gave it last time. I probably should have looked that up, but I'm pretty sure I gave it either like a 9 or a 9.5. I want to say 9.5 probably because I do think the season 2 is practically perfect. I don't think this season was bad. I want to say that because I have bashed it a lot, but I still think that it's an incredible show. I don't think that you should skip this season. I think it's worth watching. I think that they just got maybe a little nervous that they were doing so well. And they were like, oh my God, how do we like keep up with this momentum? And then they dropped the ball in doing that. But with that said, I am going to go, I'm torn between like 2 numbers. And I don't know if I should like be nice because I like previous seasons or rate it for what it is. And I think I'm just going to rate it for what it is. And I'm going to give this a solid 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Was that what you thought I said? Because you looked disappointed.
No, I thought it was going to be higher than that.
Really? You thought I was going to do 8?
I thought it was going to be 7.5.
I was between 7.5 and 7.
Okay.
And if I was ranking it just as like, if they had just wrapped up one thing, if they literally had just wrapped up either the Claire situation, the review, the partnership, if they had wrapped anything up, I would have been like, okay, they gave us a little crumb. No, they left us starving at the end of this and just like did not feel satisfied and wanting more. So 7 is my final answer for the show.
Oh boy, what a review. That was a long one, guys. Well, thank you guys all for watching. If you guys stuck around for this whole thing, please let us know in the comments, what were your thoughts on The Bear season 3? What are your thoughts on The Bear in general? Obviously, there's a lot of different opinions here at the table. It's always fun when that happens, so we can continue the conversation in the comments. So please let us know what you guys think. If you guys can also give this video a like, and you can subscribe. We are the Culture Wave Media Network. We're covering a bunch of things, not only The Bear, but also all the other TV shows that are active right now. House of the Dragon, The Acolyte, The Boys, plus all big movies that are coming out. We have a review out for The Bike Riders. This week we have Kinds of Kindness coming. We have A Quiet Place Day 1 coming. Next week we're going to be covering Maxine. So all the big releases we got it covered here for you at Culture Wave. And if you can follow us on social media, we are at Cinema Wave Media and at _Culture Wave Media on Instagram, as well as at Cinema Wave Media on TikTok and Threads, and just Culture Wave on Facebook. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
I am Meaghan Krantz.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.